What's happening, everybody? It's Grand Prix GTP02 here, kicking it back in the absolutely beautiful and picturesque setting that is the Mercer Park and Arboretum just outside of Houston, Texas. And today I've brought along the 2016 Infiniti Q50 RedSport 400. Now, some of you guys may have seen via my other sources of social media that I've been driving this car over the past weekend, courtesy of our friends over at Turo. Now, that is a service where you can rent some of the hottest cars around your local area via generous private owners. But now that I've got the car here, I'm ready to deliver my final verdict on this all-new fire-spitting version of Infiniti's popular-selling compact sports sedan. Alrighty guys, so here we are, the 2016 Infiniti Q50 RedSport 400. Now, before I get into all the cool stuff that makes this particular vehicle so special, let us remind ourselves of why this car even exists in the first place. And it all starts with one simple little letter, which is of course the letter G. Now, if it wasn't for the letter G, we wouldn't even have this car at all. I am of course referring back to the birth of Infiniti's sports sedan in the form of the G35, all the way back in 2003. Now, of course, they did have the G20 back in the late 90s and into the 2000s, but that wasn't really a sports sedan. It really was when the G35 came about in 2003 that Infiniti launched themselves into the sports sedan category as a whole and really pretty much saved themselves from going belly up due to the sort of decrease in sales of some of their other luxury sedans, which weren't exactly doing the greatest back in those days. Now, of course, the G35 had a pretty good run, but then, of course, Infiniti stepped it up over the years by introducing the G37 in the late 2000s, using some of the powertrain components from the Nissan 370Z. But then in 2014, Infiniti went one step further, not only changing up their vehicle lineup and styling as a whole, but also changing their nomenclature, using only the letter Q to designate all of their cars and QX to designate all of their SUVs. Now, as far as Infiniti's lineup for 2016 and 17 goes, you have the Q50, which of course is this car. You have the Q60, which is their popular selling two-door coupe. Then you have the Q70, which took over the place of the old M cars, those being the M35 and the M56. But then, of course, you get into their SUV line, and weirdly, Infiniti seems to have more SUVs in the market nowadays and crossovers than they do sporty sedans like this. You now have the QX30, which is new for 2017 and is Infiniti's new subcompact crossover. You have the QX50, which takes the place of the old EX35. You have the QX60, which takes over from the old JX35, or basically a hopped-up Nissan Pathfinder. But then you have the QX70, which takes over from the old Infiniti FX. And then, of course, you have the big daddy of them all, the Infiniti QX80. So just a little bit of a history lesson to show you guys just how far Infiniti really has come over the past decade or so. But now we get to this enthusiast-driven Q50 that I have here, the RedSport 400. If you are a speed junkie of any kind, then you will absolutely love this car. Now, of course, the reason for the name not only relates to the fact that this is the sportiest of the Q50 lineup, but the 400 is the big part, referring to the fact that this is now the most powerful version Infiniti has ever offered of any of their small sports sedans. 400 horsepower from an all-new VR-derived 3-liter twin turbocharged V6 that we'll talk about here in just a bit. But let's go ahead and talk about the car that I have in front of you guys. This 2016 model that I'm showing you has over $6,000 in options equipped to it as it sits. This car has the Premium Plus package, it has the driver assistance package, and the technology package, and all of that adds up to quite a lot of stuff added onto the vehicle. But you really wouldn't notice it from the exterior. There are a few things that you'll see here and there, but most of the technology is on the inside. But starting here on the exterior, you have a lot of Infiniti's typical styling. These swept back headlights, these are bi-xenon headlights, but the I believe it's the technology package gives them the adaptive headlight control, which means they will swivel back and forth. They have the factory LED accents that run up along the top and around the main part of the bulb here, but they're standard bi-xenons on the RedSport model, but they are optional on some of the lower trims. Down here below on this unique front fascia to the Sport and RedSport models, you have LED turn signals and also the brighter fog lights down here below. Now, as far as the styling goes, the front end of this car is aggressive. From some angles, it's not desperately pretty like some of Infiniti's other cars, but you do have their curved grille here, this beautiful chrome outlined grille here in the front. This car is finished in this beautiful pearl white, and it just looks absolutely gorgeous. This car also does have front parking assist sensors, and it also includes sonar with an around view monitor, a part of the driver assistance package. You also have the forward collision alert, also a part of the safety features equipped to this particular vehicle. And overall, the front end of this car just looks absolutely aggressive. If I saw this thing coming up on me from the rear, I would definitely say just put on your turn signal and get on over. Now, on this particular model here, we also have the standard 19-inch smoke gray finished alloy wheels. We also have four-wheel disc brakes hidden in the back. For 2017, I read from Infiniti that these brake calipers will be red rather than the silver that is on this particular vehicle, but I think the silver brake calipers don't really ruin the look of the wheels too badly. Now then, of course, you have the signature badging here on the side, the red S, of course, signifying the RedSport model, and then the 3.0T, of course, referring to the engine that is up front. Now, speaking of the powertrains on this car, this is available in several different ones with 3 different engine choices, or rather two choices of one particular engine, and then you have a smaller one for the base model. The base model gives you a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, but then you have the 300 and the 400 horsepower versions of the 3-liter twin turbocharged V6 that we have here. Moving around the side, we have body color exterior mirrors. As you can see, you do have cameras hidden underneath. There's one in the driver's mirror as well, and again, that is a part of the around view monitor. There's also a camera hidden up here in the mirror, I believe, or there's one at least at the front of the vehicle, because when you put it in drive, you can actually switch to a camera mode inside the vehicle that will allow you to see out of the front, out of the side, and again, that around view monitor as well. We do have LED turn signals here on the side of the mirror, and also we have Infiniti's iKey, or their intelligent access. Now, unlike a lot of other Nissan or even Infiniti products, for some reason Infiniti decided to put a touch sensor on the back of each of the door handles, and you only use the button on the side to lock it. Beforehand, you had to use the button on the side to lock and unlock the vehicle. So I do like that Infiniti has now included some touch sensitivity to their iKey system as well. Up here on top, you have a power tilting and sliding sunroof as standard equipment on the RedSport 400 model. And from a side profile, it doesn't exactly look like a huge car, but I will tell you, it still has that beautiful low slung stance of a typical sports sedan. And for me, I think it's not so much understated, but it's very aggressive. It's not like these sort of contemporary designs that like BMW, Audi, and Mercedes have been going for over the years. I really think that this is one of the more aggressive looking sports sedans in this particular category. Now, as we come out back here, we have full LED taillights wrapping around the sides. They look like a pair of eyes when they're lit up at night. They're really awesome. You have these rings that go underneath here, and then the stripe that goes across the top. You, of course, have the rear parking assist and also rear accident alert, or backup collision alert, a part of the technology package on this particular vehicle. So if the vehicle senses you're about to hit something when you're when you're backing up, it will, of course, intervene and will ultimately avoid a collision. Now, you also have the reverse backup camera hidden just underneath here. And while I'm back here, also a shout out to Clear Lake Infiniti. This particular vehicle belongs to one of their new car sales managers, so a big thanks to her for allowing me to borrow this car yet once again. Down here below, also unique to the RedSport 400, we also have these unique styled exhaust tips. And let me tell you something, with that 3-liter twin turbo engine up front, this car sounds absolutely insane. It is just a wicked wicked sports sedan. It's super fast, and the torque of this thing, with this particular one being rear-wheel drive, even though this one can be available with all-wheel drive, this car is absolutely a shove you back in the seat fast kind of sports sedan. Whereas the others kind of make you ride a wave of torque, this one hits you right in the pit of your stomach right when you want it. And believe me, when you put 400 horsepower down to those rear wheels, you can definitely induce some awesome wheel spin. Now, I haven't done burnouts in this car, but definitely will squeak the tires even with the traction control fully engaged. Now, as much as I love the exterior of this car, of course the best place to spend your time is on the inside, so that is where we're going to look next. Now, just like a lot of the other cars that the Q50 competes against, this car isn't just about the stunning performance, especially with this RedSport 400 model that it has on offer, but it is also about luxury and the amount of technology that the company offers for the cash. And one of the things I really can praise the Q50 for is it seems Infiniti's craftsmen went back and listened to what Infiniti customers were saying about the G35 and the G37, and they revised it all for the Q50. So here on the door panel of this RedSport model that I have, we have soft touch leather across the top part of the door, the matte silver trim accenting this beautiful burlwood trim that goes across all of the door panels and around a piece of the center console. You have the stitched leather here in the middle part of the door pad. It isn't the most plush thing I've ever felt, but it is still very soft, and I would be happy to lean my arm up against that. Equally as much, I would love to lean my arm up against this beautiful padded armrest, also wrapped in leather with the color contrast stitching. You have a nice little bottle holder down here in the bottom of the door, as well as a map pocket. You have the dark metallic gray finish surrounding all of your power switches. So you have your power mirrors, power door locks, the Infiniti iKey keyless access, as I showed you on the outside, and surprisingly, all 4 automatic windows with the little chrome tips on the end, but again, one touch in both directions, as well as the window locks. Now, as far as technology goes, this car is loaded with it. Like I said, not only does this have the Premium Plus package, which rolls in things like navigation, but it also includes the driver assistance package and the technology package. So we have a 2-person driver memory seat. We also have power lumbar support, power recline, power distance, and also you have a nice little manual seat extender at the front. Now, accenting the pearl white of this car, this particular RedSport that I'm showing you has the graphite leather interior. You can also get this car with the wheat leather upholstery, which is just a very nice cream beige color. The seats are very nicely bolstered, very heavily bolstered at that. I am a little bit more of a wider frame. I'm a rather broad-shouldered person, not the heaviest of people at about 190 pounds, 6 foot 1 inches tall. But the thing I'm finding is that because of my broad shoulders, I'm finding that my back gets pinched kind of around in here. It's not bad, but sometimes it just doesn't feel like it's hugging me like it really should. It just feels like it's kind of pinching me in the torso here, especially with these bigger bolsters. Now, the Premium Plus package does roll in heated front seats, as well as the heated leather-trimmed 3-spoke steering wheel. So already, just in the initial entry, you're already looking at quite a lot of technology to begin with. Now, once you set foot inside the interior of the Q50, particularly pertaining to this RedSport 400 model that I've got here today, I did notice a couple things that were a little bit funny when I very first got the car. For starters, the steering wheel is power tilting and telescoping, but it does also have its own memory function, hence the reason why it's retracted all the way up and away from me, but that only is like that until you start the car, when it goes back to its last memory position, which coincides with the memory position of the seat. Now, this being a sports sedan, the entry into the vehicle isn't actually bad. You do have to step down a good bit, and if you are a little on the tall side, you may have to duck your head as well. But overall, it's really not too bad actually sitting down inside this car. Now, even though it is nice and cool outside, we'll go ahead and start this car up. This particular one with the Premium Plus package does also feature the remote start on the top of the key fob, as you saw earlier. But being the fact it's your traditional smart key system, all you have to do is have your foot on the brake pedal with the key inside the vehicle, then simply hit the black button up here on the dashboard to fire up the engine. Now, first sitting myself down inside the interior of this particular Q50, I'm kind of getting a bag of mixed feelings here because certain areas of the car do feel right up to date with today's modern technology and advancements, but some areas don't exactly feel up to scratch like they would in some of this car's competition. So certain key touch places like the dashboard here, very firm to the touch, even though it is wrapped in the same sort of leather that you may find, say, on the top of the door panel over there. It is very firm to the touch. It really does not have a whole lot of give to it, and I don't know if I'm the only one feeling this or if anybody else who has driven this car has felt that way, but I know people aren't going to go poking and prodding the interior of this car if you're just on a drive. Say if you had a passenger and they're not going to be poking and prodding your dashboard, I don't think that's going to be much of a problem. But for me at least, it kind of detracts away from the feeling of this being a $50,000+ car. If it's going to be a $50,000 car, would have expected a little bit nicer materials up here on the dash. But certain other areas do feel a little bit dated as well, particularly looking at the gauge cluster. It's very much the same gauge cluster that was in the Infiniti G37, at least, kind of reminiscent of that as it got up in age. But this gauge cluster, of course, is in a lot of Infiniti's other vehicles in the line as well. Now, it does come with the liquid crystal display and driver information center, and that is controlled via their own separate toggle switches located on the steering wheel. So you have things such as vehicle service warnings, your service dates. You have a blank screen, you have the chassis control. Now this car does have Infiniti's dynamic digital suspension control, so it kind of adapts to your driving style. If you're more of a hoonigan, as a lot of people like to call them, driving this car very spiritedly, then it will adapt to such. You also have things such as your tire pressures, driving aids, such as forward collision warning, blind spot warning and blind spot monitoring, and so on and so forth, lane keep assist. You also have the audio system, which we'll get to here in a moment. You have a compass to go with your navigation, active fuel economy, distance and trip meters, and then of course your average speed and vehicle range where we were before. Now, looking directly in front of the driver, you do have this 3-spoke leather and aluminum trimmed steering wheel as standard equipment on pretty much all Q50s across the line. The leather itself is nice and soft. It's not the supplest of leather. It does kind of look a little on the cheap side. I'm not saying it is cheap or it kind of feels cheap, but just from the overall first appearance, it kind of looks a little bit on the cheap side. You do have the grip extensions up here at 10 and 2. They're nice and soft, great place to rest your thumbs, and they're not too jagged or anything like that. Even the 9 and 3 grips are perfectly placed, and even better placed are these magnesium paddle shifters here on the back of the wheel. Feels like they're taken straight out of a Nissan GTR, and having driven a GTR, I can tell you they almost feel the same. They've got a nice little ridge in the back. They say they're leather wrapped, but the leather feels more like leatherette. It's kind of thin, but then again, this is a very thin paddle. It has a nice definitive pull to it. One of the things that you'll notice when we go on a drive in this car is the transmission is a little bit hesitant to respond when you're driving it spiritedly. It takes about a second or two once you pull the paddle for the gear to actually engage. It's just a little bit concerning for me, being that this is a more performance-oriented car, but you pull up on the right one to shift up, pull back on the left one to shift down. Now, as far as your controls on the steering wheel itself, you have your hands-free radio controls over here, a control for the in-touch telematics system here in the center, and of course you have Bluetooth with voice recognition. Over here on the right, you have your active cruise control, which comes with the technology package on this car. You also have your cruise control functions. You even have sonar for the rear backup camera. Now, of course, this does come with the around view monitor on this particular vehicle as well, with all the packages that are on it, but that sonar is a part of the 360 around view monitor, which is pretty sweet that this car comes with sonar. It sounds like something out of a submarine, but then you of course have the cruise control functions, and again the functions for the driver information center up top as well. Just to the left, you do have your trip functions. You have the control for the power tilting and telescoping steering wheel. Then you have your trunk release and your traction control button as well, and I would recommend leaving that traction control on, because this car in particular, being rear wheel drive, it will turn most of those rear tires into smoke if you're not careful. Now moving over to the center console here, this is where I have a couple of gripes with this particular car. For starters, I like the fact it's dual screen. It makes it look a lot more high-tech than maybe some people would assume in the first place. But one thing that is a gripe of mine are the graphics on the nav screen. Infiniti says for 2017, they included three-dimensional buildings and that the nav is tilted away from you a little bit. So maybe this is just one of Infiniti's older systems here in this 2016 model, but it just detracts away from it. I mean, I wish the nav system was updated just a little bit, wish it was a little bit fresher, kind of like a lot of today's other modern sports sedans out there with the same kind of technology, but overall, I can't dog it too bad. It does its job still very admirably. But then you get to Infiniti's InTouch telematics and application system. Now, I don't mind the system as a whole, but one of the gripes that myself and a lot of other people that have tested this car have had is the response time. It is a little on the adequate side, if I was to say it appropriately, because it's not the slowest thing in the world, but it does take a second at least for the device to sort of understand what you're trying to do. Now, of course, you have things such as your street address, points of interest, home, destination, Bluetooth phone, vehicle information. You have your InTouch services as well, which you can see all of what they do right there. Both of these screens are touchscreens, so you not only have a touchscreen navigation system, but you also have a touchscreen system for the InTouch here as well. You have things such as your Infiniti Drive Mode selector, which is pretty cool, kind of personalize your driving modes. Now, this car has 6 different driving modes that you can select, which I'll touch on here in just a bit, but you can change things such as the feel of the adaptive steering, the feeling of the adaptive shift control in the automatic transmission here, and so on and so forth, excuse me. You do have your driver assistance function, so you have forward collision alert, lane keep assist, and lane departure warning, blind spot assist, and your emergency assistance as well. The emergency backup assistance as well. You have your app garage, quick guide, your clock, so that's just your standard clock there in the middle. You can just go back there. Compass, that's pretty self-explanatory. You can check your email, check your calendar, and you even have a driving performance application here, which has things such as a G meter, acceleration meter, and even your fuel flow. Now, my friend Sofyan Bey at To The Redline Production said that's a bit of a gimmick. I'm quite inclined to agree with him because I'm just not a fan of gimmicky kind of stuff like that. I'd much rather focus on the job of driving than looking over at this screen at a G meter of all things. Now, on the sides of the InTouch display here, we do have a dual zone climate control system. Your temperature controls are the arrows at the top of the controls. You have your fan speed over here on the left. You have automatic AC, climate zones over here on the left, air conditioning, recycling. You have the front and rear defroster, and then of course you have the button to turn that on or off. But also you have this little climate button here in the middle. You can synchronize the seats synchronize the air conditioning. You have 3-stage heated seats for both the driver and passenger with the Premium Plus package that I have here. So you can actually adjust. You can either have automatic, you can have high, mid, low, and that basically explains itself right there. Also the heated leather steering wheel, as I mentioned before. So overall, very simple to use. Again, the touch responses are okay. They're not the best thing in the world. But then one of the things that is really nice about this car is what happens when you hit the audio button. You may not notice it on the doors, but if you look up on the dash right at the front of the dashboard, you will notice a little word that says Bose. The RedSport 400 that I have here comes standard with Bose's 16 speaker, high performance audio system with the Bose Centerpoint audio clarification. And let me just say, this thing makes some impressive sounds. So I do have the bass turned up quite a good bit, as well as the treble, and I can tell you it definitely does induce some nice little rattles coming into the cabin. Not so much in terms of the interior materials, but you can really feel the vibrations and stuff in your leg. It's really, really interesting. But I love the Bose stereo system. Very nice sounding, nice and crisp, nice and clean. You do also have things such as your Seek Track button, the radio functions as well. So you have AM, FM, Sirius XM satellite radio, your CD player, and your iPod connectivity. But you also have things such as your CD button down here, which your CD player is located right in the middle, and then of course the tune channel button located right here as well. Again, the heated seat buttons are also located down just in front of the shifter, and then you have your hazard lights right in the middle. Flipping this up, you just have a small little ashtray right there. And then moving further back, we have the transmission. Now, the RedSport 400 comes with the adaptive shift control and the 7-speed electronically controlled automatic transmission. Now, of course, you do have the manual mode, so you can use the gear stick down here, but I prefer to use the paddles up here. It feels like a much nicer, more sports car-like experience. The shifter knob is wrapped in leather with a little bit of aluminum here in the middle. It's a name I can't even pronounce. I think it's Kachu, something like that. Anyways, that is genuine aluminum trim right there with a nice leather shift boot that trails off to the base of the shifter. Of course, you have park, reverse, neutral, drive. And then again, you have that around view monitor and a little button right here that's labeled camera. Now, you do have a camera that looks out the front of the vehicle when you are in drive. So you do have your around views right here. You can change your different views. So you're looking out the front and the side of the vehicle. You can look out just the front. And again, you have your around view monitor as well. And you can just simply hit the camera button. And once you do, you can actually turn it all the way off, as you see right here. Now, you do have the reverse camera as well. So once you put it in reverse, again, it brings up the around view monitor. You can change the view. So you can look out the back of the vehicle, or you can just look all the way out the back, or the back and side, excuse me. But anyways, all of that, very nice technology. I do like the around view monitor that this particular car has. Very, very useful when getting out of tight spaces. Now, this little gadget here, this is for your navigation. So you do have things such as your, let me just get out of the camera here. As you can see, you do have the zoom in and zoom out. That's just done by turning the little dial here. And then you also have the back button as well, which allows you to get out of certain things. Now, the important thing that I was going to get to is this drive mode select. Like I said, there are 6 different modes in this car, and if you flick it up, you can see we've got personal, we've got sport, and sport plus, which I've been driving this car around in for most of the time. Personal allows you to adjust everything, which I was showing you here with the in-touch function. You have standard, which is just your standard driving mode. You have eco, which dulls the throttle to at least 50% of the throttle, so it allows you to get the 26 mile per gallon fuel economy rating that this car has been rated by the EPA. Then you have snow mode, which in rear wheel drive isn't necessarily necessary, but if you had this car with the intelligent all-wheel drive system, that would definitely be a nice mode to have. But I'm going to leave it in Sport Plus because we're getting ready to go driving just after this review. So anyways, after all of that, you do have the nice burl wood that wraps around the center console here, which I really do like. And then of course you have a nice little center console with your SD card and 2 USB ports and your auxiliary jack for all of your hands-free media devices as well. Now, being the fact that the Q50 is classified technically as a compact sports sedan, this car, along with other vehicles in this particular segment, do unfortunately fall down when it comes to accommodating rear passengers here. Now, I'm 6'1", and stepping into the back here, it's not exactly the tightest of space, but there's not exactly plentiful amounts of legroom and headroom either. For starters, the back of the seats, you can hear they're plasticky, they're just cheap feeling here in the back. I would have expected the leather to go all the way up and over, maybe to allow for something a little bit more plush, something a little bit nicer for rear occupants to maybe lean their knees up against, if perhaps they're so inclined, or perhaps they're on the tall side. Something nicer for the back of the seats would have been a nice little touch. But one of the things that I am finding as a positive about the back seats is that you are sat up a little bit higher here in the back than you would be in the front. Now, the advantage of this is the fact that it does eliminate travel sickness. Unfortunately, some people may experience it, being the fact that this is the 400 horsepower one, and you may be inclined to drive this car like an idiot. But other things about the back, you do have this center console here in the back with nice little cup holders located down below. You do have a lockable pass-through, even though these seats are 60-40 split fold. But overall, comfort in the rear, I'm finding I'm still pretty comfortable, just a little shy on legroom with the driver's seat in my current position. And as far as headroom, I'm not even going to show you guys because my head is basically against the ceiling back here. So taller passengers over 6 feet tall may have a little bit of a hard time in the back seat, but otherwise, if you're a little on the shorter side, you may not even have a problem at all. Now, when it comes to usable cargo space in the back of the Q50, this car does have a good bit of space to start with. However, it is not without its drawbacks. For starters, one thing I've noticed is the floor is a little bit high. However, underneath you do have a full-size spare tire, or at least a donut, so it's nice that Infiniti does give you that instead of a fix-a-flat kit. But the initial entry is rather wide, but a little narrow at the same time, so bigger suitcases and stuff may have a hard time fitting in there. But overall space, you're looking at 13.2 cubic feet of initial space. Now I say initial because if you notice these little pull tabs here, the rear seats do turn into 60/40 split fold rear seats, so you do have a nice little opening there to allow for bigger items. But overall, I'd say trunk space in the Q50 is still pretty adequate if you're looking for a sports sedan that can still haul a good bit of everything else. And finally, at the end of it all, we now get around to the main reason why this car is called the RedSport 400. Because what you are looking at is Infiniti's most powerful engine that they have ever installed into their compact sports sedan. This is their new VR30 twin turbocharged 3-liter V6 that features double overhead cams, 24 valves, it features direct fuel injection, and Infiniti's continuous variable valve timing control system and their variable valve event and lift. Now this, of course, equates to some serious performance. 400 horsepower and 350 pound-feet of torque available from just 1,500 RPM all the way up to 5,250 RPM. Now, this car being rear-wheel drive, it's good enough for a sprint to 60 in the mid-4-second range, and the EPA has rated this thing at 20 miles per gallon in the city and 26 miles per gallon on the interstate highway, running on recommended premium unleaded fuel. Now, if you go with this car with the RedSport 400 engine and all-wheel drive, it will drop your miles per gallon down to 19 in the city and 26 on the highway. So all in all, an absolute monster of an engine and definitely a true performer for both the enthusiast and luxury car lovers alike. Now, when I said at the beginning that this car was packed full of technology, most of it on this particular vehicle revolves around the idea of safety. Because with both the technology package and the driver assistance package, this car has so many safety features, I'm not even going to list all of them. But some of the crucial ones are ones you will find on other high-end sports sedans. Things such as lane keep assist, lane departure warning. You also have blind spot monitoring and blind spot indicators in each one of the door mirrors here. You also have things such as the front impact airbags. You have side curtain airbags is located on the B pillar, and you also have side impact airbags located in the seats. Now you also have other things such as the adaptive bi-xenon headlights that we looked at earlier with the high beam assist. You also have things such as active lane control, blind spot warning, not just blind spot monitoring, but blind spot warning. You also have the rear collision alert system and rear collision detection, all that kind of cool stuff. And if you want to find out more about it, I've included a link to the Q50 specifically from Infiniti's website in the description box below if you want to find out all the cool safety features in this car. But I can prove to you that this car is completely loaded out because I have found the original Moroni sticker here. And let me just say, this car has everything. So like I said, technology package, this wood on the door is actual maple wood, so that's an additional $400. The direct adaptive steering package, that's an extra $1,000. You have the Premium Plus and the driver assistance package, all added up to just under $58,000. So quite a hefty chunk of change for this car in the end. And I will say that it still does feel like a high-end luxury car. Does it feel like it competes with the $60,000 plus price point? I would say so, but that again is with all the options. The base price of this car starts at $48,700 from Infiniti themselves here in the US. It may change if this when this car goes overseas and whatnot, but overall I will say that this is a true luxury sports sedan. Albeit the fact it's on a little bit of the small side for someone as tall as I am, I still have no real major gripes with the fact that this car still knows how to excite you like some of the best names in the biz. And unfortunately, on that note, viewers, our time here with the 2016 Infiniti Q50 RedSport 400 has now unfortunately come to a close. I do hope you guys have enjoyed this review as much as I have had fun making it for you guys. Now, if you want to find out any more information about the Q50 RedSport 400 or any of the other models in Infiniti's US lineup, feel free to drop by the link that I've provided in the description box below. But in the end, a huge thanks goes out to our friends at Turo who hooked me up with this beautiful Q50 for us to drive today, and also a huge shout out goes out to the owner, Miss Trang Nguyen, who happens to be one of the new car sales managers at Clear Lake Infiniti in Clear Lake, Texas. Now, if you guys want to find out any more information about that dealership, including current inventory, both new and pre-owned, I've also included their link in the description box below as well. But in the end, guys, this has been Grand Prix GTP 02 from Houston, Texas, signing out until next time.